All right, since this queue might take like an hour, we can take this opportunity if you guys want to talk about something. A lot of people have been, there's been a big kerfuffle on WoW X/WoW Twitter about solo queue. About solo queue and if solo queue is good for the game or if it's bad for the game, if threes is dead, if they need to revitalize it. Like, it's been interesting. A lot of people taking some big stances, some big opinions, so we could check that out. I think it all started with this. It's all with Big Moran here. Big Moran's the instigator. Big Moran starts off, he says, "It's funny and sad to me that there is a minority of PvPers who still see the game through the lens of 3v3. The bracket is dying and is already dead for 90% of the player base. It will suffer the exact same fate as RBGs by next expansion. Solo Shuffle is the only bracket that matters. If you don't realize this now, you're delusional." That's a strong take. Shuffle is fine. I think I like Shuffle, but I think it's junk food PvP that everyone plays of convenience. The MMR LFG system for threes being permanently elected by the devs. I feel bad for anyone who doesn't get to experience the joys of sending threes with people you enjoy queuing with. I do agree that the max fun you can have in World of Warcraft PvP is group queuing with some friends that you like and working together to get better. The problem is it's kind of a pipe dream for most people. You know, most people just experience the terrible LFG. And I do think, I will say, I do have to agree that this is a little bit on Blizzard. The fact that they haven't iterated on or made their LFG system better even a little bit seems insane to me, personally. And this is coming from someone who actually likes Solo Shuffle, but the LFG system being as bad as it is actually pretty wild. So we'll see how this thread evolved. So then Big Moran, he goes on to say, "Let me be clear, I think 3v3 is cool. It's a valuable competitive experience that I wish more people could enjoy." Okay. "The reality is that Solo Shuffle dwarfs every other game mode in sheer volume of players. On North America, there are 240,000 players with Solo Shuffle rating, 160,000 players with Blitz rating, 112,000 with 2v2 rating, 73,000 with 3v3 rating, and 13,000 with RPG rating. At 1,800 plus, there are over 5 times more Shuffle players than threes players. Pandora's box is open. There's no going back. Just look at LFG for 3v3. It says it all. I remember in Legion, I transferred to Horde where it was more popular and there's 30 plus postings of threes. There were hardly any. Factions are combined now too. It's especially easier to solo queue as a healer. Queue times are so fast. Yeah, if you're a healer, you can basically do whatever you want. There are a lot of healers though that do prefer playing threes. But like if you're a healer and you only have a limited amount of time to play, you don't have to deal with the long queues. You get to just play. So you kind of incentivize there. Let me keep going through this. There's more. There's more than more. Yeah, Big Moran made a poll. All right, let's just keep going here. This is all Big Moran. Okay, making a poll. Read carefully. If you could only keep one bracket in PvP and delete the rest, what would you keep? That's hard. Delete the rest. First of all, I don't like the premise of this question, but how many people were polled here? There's 600 votes. 50% of people said they want threes and they would kill all the other brackets for it. Then Big Moran comes in here. He says, the remove solo queue community when Blizzard removes solo queue and over half the PvP player base disappears. I do think that there is this thought process right now that if you somehow killed solo queue or removed Solo Shuffle and Blitz and made everyone kind of group queue for everything, that all the people that play Blitz and Shuffle would somehow play threes, and I don't think that's true. I think a lot of people would just quit because the LFG system is so bad, you know? Wouldn't happen if they added a proper solo/flex queue to threes that allowed players to earn Gladiator Mount 2. Shuffle needs to be replaced. Now, this is an interesting proposition. This is... okay, so I've seen a lot of takes, and I don't know where I read it originally, but I did hear an alternative to Solo Shuffle that sounded interesting to me. And the alternative to Solo Shuffle is that you could solo queue the 3v3 bracket. Okay, so you would just queue up and you get put into a threes game. And you would play against anyone. Like, you could duo queue into a threes game, you could solo queue into a threes game, or you could trio queue into a threes game. So there is the problem, of course, that if you're a solo player, you're going to be playing against 3 stacks, right? But the only thing that I heard that maybe makes that okay is, number one, it would help you find threes partners. It would kind of concentrate everyone into one bracket, which is nice. So, yeah, 3v3 would just be more active, and it would just focus more people into a bracket, which is nice. The other thing I heard is that you could make a solo queue rating within threes. So if you queue threes by yourself, you actually have a solo queue rating, which would be different. So like, everyone would play in the same bracket, but if you solo queue, you have a solo queue rating. And you would get your own kind of rewards and your own climbing based off that. Now, I don't know. I haven't thought about all the potential problems with that, but I did think that that was semi-interesting. Would never work. That could be cool. I don't know why it would never work. Because, you know... we got this. We got Revsy. The solo queue community, when they remember PvP, was 100 times more active prior to solo shuffle. I do think that there's a reason why they added solo queue, right? I think people forget that. Like, there was a reason why they added solo queue to begin with, and originally the community liked it, and I still think there's a lot of people that do like solo queue. Because I could be like, if I could be like a moderate on this topic, the people that want to just get rid of solo queue and force everyone to, you know, LFG and look at threes, that's obviously not a good solution. People will just not bother with that. Unless Blizzard somehow did like a crazy update to LFG. I mean, threes was more active, right? If not, show proof. Shadowlands Season 4 is typing more alive than the faded season of Dragonflight. Did you look at the picture I linked? I did not. No. What is it? I drew this up years ago. Let's see what this is. You select which specs you'd like to play with or queue up. It'll match you with people that line up with your selections within 100 MMR of yourself and put you directly in an arena with them. After the game, there will be a queue again button, which will party you up. There will be a add recently played. That would be good. I like everything about that, except that you can pick your spec to queue with. That's the only thing I don't like. Because I think there's a problem where people will be even more inclined to just be meta slaves, you know? Like, why on earth would you ever fucking queue with a Windwalker monk if you can just click Feral and Rogue instead, you know? To give people some comp selection? I suppose so, yeah, but... Pick spec, why is my queue an hour? Yeah, it would make the queues way worse. That also encourages proper balancing. I suppose so, yeah. But... yeah, I'm not really sure. But I do think that there is potentially something to changing the solo queue system in WoW. There has to be a solo queue system in WoW. I do believe that, but I thought it was at least interesting that you could kind of combine the 3v3 bracket and the solo queue bracket. And that way, if you are a player that solo queues, you can still get like Gladiator and stuff like that, which I think could be cool. I wanted to look at something Absturge said. Right, Absturge replied to Big Moran. Absturge says, solo shuffle unironically drives a WoW PvP into the ground. If I wanted to play a solo queue, log in and hit queue game, I'd play literally anything else. Not the game that requires me to spend $150 a month, $60 for every new expansion, that I have to spend hours leveling and gearing in to wait 30 minutes in queue just to have someone type 06 healer DPS and get right back into another 30-minute queue. I think this is a slight doomer take by my good friend Absturge. Absturge says, it's so sad to see the numbers because you know it's just not sustainable at all. PvP player base will lessen every season, and our way of keeping them is, hey, sit 30-minute shuffle queues, please. Yeah, I do think long-term the 30-minute queues are unsustainable. I think it's probably... it's one of the bigger problems, for sure. What did Big Moran say? He was just talking about threes and how threes is a dying bracket and it's going to go the way of the dodo bird. Let's see. Let's see what this person says. He says, I have almost exclusively done soul shuffle since Dragonflight. The higher I get, the longer queues I get, the less I want to play. So later in the season when I'm 2100, 2400, my queues are 30 minutes. Sometimes I typically quit queuing If semi queues were sub 3 minutes every time, I would be queuing all the time, all season, every season. I genuinely do not give a shit about threes bracket at all. These are definitely the biggest issue regarding shuffle. Agreed. With that said, the sad reality is queues will never be that fast. There's not enough healers, not enough players in general. No one new is playing PvP. Not enough rewards for the current players to stick around. The only thing in 11.1 to somewhat address this is a list of healer changes / buffs. Outside of that, none of this is being resolved, so Shuffle will continue to sap the energy out of the remaining PvPers until everybody quits. Jesus, man. As a new PvP healer, I made it about 4 days before going back to raiding. I can get the perfect rep Hodge and pin the healer for an eternity and nobody dies. Your haste might as well be 0 compared to PvE as well. It just feels bad. Not to mention the endless CC you deal with. I do think that the PvP rewards are bad. Definitely not ideal. I agree with that. It's interesting to see where the community's at on this one. Let's see what else people responded to. Rank 1s and multi-lads blaming Solo Shuffle for killing PvP as part of the issue. Only thing Solo Shuffle did was remove the casual player base variability from legacy rated PvP modes. If anything, instead of blasting the casual PvPers for wanting rewards, how about listening to the player base? Rank 1s forget that there were new once upon a time. They were new once upon a time. There's literally no gateway into threes if you're a new player. Abster says, I think you're confused as to who I am and what I've tried to do for WoW, which is fair. Can't meet or know everyone. Happy to meet you. I've done nothing but advocate for better systems and making the game better for casuals for almost a decade. Whether it's a reward structure, MMR system, LFG systems, gearing, unfortunately those things aren't and will never be fixed. There's a reason it's been 2 years of 30-minute queues for Solo Shuffle. The reason is they simply do not care. I'm gonna... You know what I think is underrated as kind of a side note is Battleground Blitz. I actually love Battleground Blitz a lot. Another very interesting thing to me about threes, and I don't know if you guys feel the same way, but I feel like threes, to me, feels the most imbalanced of all of the brackets that I play. Threes feels the most imbalanced of anything that I play. Like when I'm watching high-rated threes games, every single game is just a Feral or a Rogue. Sometimes a Fury Warrior. It's like, it feels like the same thing every time. It's crazy. Like if you're not playing like an S tier comp, threes feels so unfun to me. Don't forget Ellie. Yeah, there's a lot of Ellie shamans too. Whereas like when I queue Blitz, there's obviously like imbalances, you know? Like if one team has a sub rogue and a Mistweaver monk, the other team doesn't. It doesn't feel as good, but it doesn't feel like completely insurmountable. And Shuffle is another one. One of the reasons why I like Shuffle, I was telling Big Moran this, is I like the variety, you know? Like every game is different. There's lots of different classes you get to play with and against. You get to play with lots of different players. It's nice. I'd argue 2s are infinitely worse, but 3s have become increasingly meta with each season, and people will rotate through their ults to the same spec with the same players. Yep. Another obvious problem with 3s is the amount of boosting that goes on. Like there are benefits to Solo Shuffle and Solo Queue, is that you can't really be boosted, you know? If someone's 2900 in Shuffle, chances are they're really good. You know what I mean? Someone has Legend, like chances are they're decent. They had to do it themselves. But the amount of non-stop constant boosting in 3s is so bad. I feel like that is such a deterrent. Like the amount of Smurfs that you have to deal with is crazy. I think that partially because of all the CC changes over the years, when less CC DR'd and when CCs were longer, more comps were viable due to different win conditions. Not to mention how CC changes made Shaman worse because they were good at diffusing CC. They got forced to be micro CC damage bots. For the vast majority of us done dads, as Super T says, Solo Shuffle is the only way. I'm not using my very limited time to organize a 3s team to fall apart after one loss. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. But I did think it was interesting to hear, because this is how private servers did it, right? Like private servers basically had it so you just solo queue into 3s. So it was like when you're doing arena, it was the same game mode. There was no shuffle and there was no... Well, there was 3s. There was no shuffle, but when you solo queued, you would just get into a 3s game with people, which I think is at least somewhat interesting. Maybe it's something that they should experiment with like a brawl, you know? That's another one. Yeah. Why? Because it puts everyone in the same bracket, which is nice. You know what I mean? I think that's not a bad thing. Maybe it would bring back using voice comms and stuff too, which, yeah, for solo queue could be a little bit problematic, but... I got a message by Fujikaze as well. He says, what if the solo shuffle season was 1 or 2 months shorter than the regular 3 season? That way there's a time period where everyone is pushing regular 3s and another earlier time period where everyone is pushing for solo queue rank 1. I don't think that that's a bad idea either. I actually think it's a problem that the season ends for all 3 things at the same time. It makes it almost impossible to push for them all. It's an interesting thought. Like, if the season ended at different times for different brackets, like, okay, solo shuffle is done this week, Blitz is done this week, and 3s is done this week. I kind of encourage people to push the different brackets at different times. Could be interesting. I also just think in general that the seasons are way too long right now. 6-month seasons are absolute insanity, considering like the most fun times of the season are the beginning and the end. Having like 4 months of downtime, you know what I mean? Like the first month and the last month are probably the most fun. Having like this weird 4-month period where like nothing's really going on is crazy. I think I would like to see PvP seasons return to like multiple seasons per tier. You know, like 3-month seasons. Over 6 months is kind of crazy. Piggybacking that idea, it'd be nice if there were systems that promote friending people you met in shuffle, so at the end of the shuffle you're prompted to add people you played with or something. Yeah, that would be cool too. You could see all the people, or even what if they added like a commendation system in WoW? Like you could commend people. It just feels like there's so much that they could do, you know? Take classic WoW expansion, for example. The season starts off and people play meta comps, but there's a ton of people playing random comps that aren't S tier. Over time, once people will quit, the ladder turns into 3 comps and the same people are playing. Everyone new has quit. Yeah, I mean, there's a reason why when you look at rating distributions, it falls off a cliff after 1800. Which goes to show you that a lot of people are driven by cosmetic rewards also. Because the main thing you get at 1800 is the elite set, right? People get their elite set and then they just don't play anymore. The biggest problem with the player base numbers is that PvEers don't have a reason to PvP anymore, and that deflates the ladder too much. Yeah, but there's a reason why they did that too. You have to remember, like, a lot of the times they make these decisions, it's because of, you know, things that the player base is saying. If PvEers, like the way I see it is, if they're going to make it so PvEers need to PvP for power, they have to do the opposite as well. Would you guys be happy if you had to raid and do high mythic plus to arena? I don't think you would. It's just, yeah, these conversations are fun. I mean, they're fun and they're also sad. I feel like we're in kind of a constant state of, yeah, hopefully it gets fixed next expansion. Even at the beginning of the expansion, we're talking about hopefully it gets fixed next expansion. This guy says, Carlos is just mad that Solo Shuffle revealed how he gets carried by his team in 3s. He's the only 3s rank 1 who is unable to get a singular rank 1 title in Shuffle. And Fernion says, Solo Shuffle, it has legitimately killed PvP. Remove it and add a solo queue system into normal 3s ladder instead and give people a separate solo queue rating. Oh, it might have been Infernion that I was reading. That way people can queue solo and even get Gladiator, and the ladder isn't split in half and inactive. I think it was Infernion that I read. I think it's an interesting one. The problem that I have with WoW PvP right now is the issues aren't hard to fix. They've been discussed for years. MMR, rewards, shuffle queue times, LFG. Could be formatted better. Season length, it's always the same. Maybe they'll fix it. Comparing things 1 and 1 in a vacuum when there's so many factors of this feels odd. Oh, what do you mean? What do you mean? Like, I'm wondering what... Are you talking, like, what could you be specific? Just... Looking at stats and saying things are dead when rewards play a big factor. Well, I don't think that things are necessarily dead, but I'm not really a doomer. Dude, did I miss the queue? God damn it, man. Yeah, I'm not a doomer when it comes to WoW PvP, but I do think the 30-minute queues are brutal. I mentioned to you guys. So here's just another for instance, okay? Right now, I think my biggest overall issue with the game is the MMR system is probably my biggest issue in all of WoW right now. And I've been playing a ton of Battleground Blitz, and the issue in Battleground Blitz is even worse than Arena, I think. Like, Battleground Blitz is absolutely insane when it comes to MMR and some of the problems that arise with the current system. So, on my mage right now, and even on my alt rogue, I literally can't queue the game. You will not get a queue. It is impossible for it to pop outside of like a 4-hour window at dawn. At like 3 a.m., 2 to 3 a.m. Eastern is when the queues start, and they go till 8 a.m. And other than that, you literally can't play ever. And with the way MMR inflates in Battleground Blitz, you run into a situation, like this happens to me at least once a session, where everyone in the game is 3,300, 3,400, except one person who's literally 1,600 or something like that. They're like 1,600, 1,700, and they have 3,400 MMR, and they just are so green, and they have no idea what they're doing. And they just, yeah. They call them MMR terrorists. It's actually insane. Like, sometimes you'll actually just get with someone who just got lucky, you know? They just got lucky like 5 or 6 times in a row while queuing. And all of a sudden, they're completely ruining a high MMR game, which makes no sense. But yeah, I don't know. I just... Hopefully... It doesn't feel like they've done too much to address these issues over a very long period of time. And I'm going to reiterate, I love the game. I think it's really fun right now, but I think the way all these systems work has been extremely frustrating for people for a long time. And I think it's starting to like boil up a little bit, you know? I think it's a 2-part problem. Shuffle pulls away from actual arena, but I think the real problem is long queues because nobody wants to heal that shit because the current playstyle, since Dragonflight is complete dog shit for heals. Max PV rotation and lobbing instant CC. The game is devolving. Dude. Whaler says the truth. Game's gotta end, Ben. Alinka said it. Game's gotta end, you know? If healers are too powerful, then... You have BFA. You have early season BFA with Vitality Conduit and nobody could die and every game's 80% dampening. I don't think I've ever been more bored in my entire life, so... I don't know exactly what the solution is, but yeah. I think healers can't be infinitely powerful because then nothing can happen. You know? Abster says, wasn't Shadowlands RMP all about running backwards and lobbing instant CC? Healers don't want more HPS. Yeah, definitely not. Most players don't really stew about stuff like this. They just leave, so there's a percent that is visible and mad. There's a bigger percentage that are just gone. Nope, you're not wrong. You're not wrong about that. But yeah, I guess we'll see what happens. We'll see if there's any changes. I'll be the first to be excited about it if there is.